Hey, good morning. It's Dr. James. I do hope and pray this message finds you and your loved ones peaceful, thriving, and well. So before we begin, I'm going to ask you to join me and just take a nice, slow, long, deep breath. And as you're doing it, I want you to kind of consider softening your eyes, softening your jaw, softening your chest, softening your heart, and then softening your belly. Okay? Just another few moments before we begin. And as you're softening yourself, I want you to consider when someone shares with you, oh, they lived a good life. What is one of the first things that you think about? Is it their age? Like, oh my goodness, they must have lived 60, 70, 80, 90 years or more. So often we consider having lived a good life being evidenced by how long we were on the planet. You know, it's so often that when I've been to any sort of celebrations of life, I've been to funerals, as much sadness as there is a time when someone says, oh my goodness, they lived such a good life. There's usually more to it than their years, isn't it? There's usually a level of experiences they've had. It always has a lot to do with how they've impacted other people. That's what they say about people who've lived well and lived deep and lived a good life. And as we draw closer to New Year's, I've been really thinking more and more, I guess it's because of this past year, so many people we've lost, so many people we've read about, the stories, the heartache, the tragedies, the brokenness. And we think to ourselves, oh my goodness, I'm still here and I am going to give myself an opportunity to really upgrade how I consider what a good life looks like as I move into the new year. So I'm going to ask you this morning to really consider, when you look around your life, you say, okay, if this was to be a good life, if this was to be something when it was my time to go, or more importantly, every single night before you go to bed, every single morning before you go out in the world and you shine your light, you simply ask yourself, okay, what does a good life look like today? And at night before you go to bed, say, oh my goodness, when I was super present, and I was just absolutely undivided right there for that person that I love, or even right there for a stranger, made those kinds of eye contacts, if you will, that we didn't look away. We just kind of gave ourselves permission to soften our eyes, to soften our jaw, even with a mask on. We softened ourselves so we could be 100% fully in that space of living a good life. Every good study that's ever been done on people who literally had great impact in the world, it didn't come down necessarily. In fact, the evidence wasn't always just conditioned on how long they were here. It was how they were here. How they were here. And when you take a long, deep breath, you get a chance to soften yourself. It's amazing how the brain works. The brain tends to move away from that beta, get things done, move on to the next thing, conspicuous consumption, and kind of unravels, if you will, and gives itself an opportunity to become beautifully uncivilized. I know, right? What does that mean? Now, don't take that to mean that you're a wild person and you're doing all kinds of wild stuff. You're breaking the law. You're just out of control. What I mean is that you've given yourself the opportunity to make the distinction between the good life usually means it's a true life. And if you've become civilized in such a way that you've lost your wild nature, the innate joy, the childlike yearning, the curiosity, the openness, the desire to be awake each and every day and try and grow and evolve and become, then that's what I mean about becoming beautifully uncivilized. I think a lot of us, and including myself this year, as I've been writing down over these last few days what I want this next year to embody for me, I want to be true. I want to let go of being good. I want to be absolutely open to the greatest opportunities to learn about what it means to have lived a good life every single day of my life by leaning into the things that make me come alive. And that's what I'm asking of you today. I'm going to ask you to consider what it means as you take that long, deep inhalation and you're softening yourself. You start to have things come up for you such as, what does mean life to me? What is it when I emancipate myself from my own self-imposed oppression, when I remove the shackles of limiting beliefs that no longer serve me, the things that are just like fitting in, and I move into the uncivilized being wildly awake? When I literally let that childlike nature of me to really come forward and express itself with no filter, to do everything I can to continually expand the impression of love, because ultimately, every time we hear when someone leaves and they say of that person, they lived a good life, there's a pretty strong likelihood they were really good at loving life. And loving life entails that you love everything and everyone in life. And in such a way that you do not distinguish between us and them. You absolutely are a broadcaster of light and hope and compassion, and you bring inclusivity into an art form. An art form, which is living a good life. That is how we could be waking up every morning. That is how we want to be going to bed every night. I was an inclusivity person. I was a possibilitarian maker. I was beautifully uncivilized. I broke away from the shackles of conformity and asked myself, what made me come alive? And then I defined it in how I lived. I defined it in how I lived. Please ask yourself what makes you come alive, and then wholeheartedly live like you're defining it every single moment of your life. And each and every day, you get a chance, if it's your time to go, to have everyone around you say, they lived, you lived a good life. Much love, all blessings, almost Happy New Year. Have an awesome day. Bye for now.